Hello, good afternoon and welcome to Midday Prime. Over the course of the next 1 hour, we'll bring you up to speed with all that's going on in the country and the world, the latest updates, be it on the COVID front or how India-US bilateral cooperation is being taken forward by our External Affairs Minister, who is on a visit to that country at the moment. But first, as always, the big news. Centre and states are in high alert. The cyclone Yas likely to turn into very severe cyclonic storm during the next 24 hours. Union Home Minister Amit Shah holds a review meeting with Chief Ministers of Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal on cyclone preparedness. NDRF deploys 99 teams into all preparedness that is required. Eastern Railway suspends 25 trains between the 24th and 29th of May. Armed Forces airlift 950 NDRF personnel, 26 helicopters on standby. Union Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan apprises the COVID-19 status across the country, says 19.6 crore vaccines administered so far. More than 21.8 crore vaccine doses provided to states and union territories. Also alerts about the rise in mucormycosis cases and assures the measures taken by the centre against the disease. Pediatric trials of Covaxin may begin in June. Steady decline in the positivity rate, which falls to its lowest since the 10th of May. Central government makes over 21.8 crore vaccine doses available to states and union territories free of cost. The centre allocates 22.17 lakh vials of Remdesivir to states and union territories for the period of 23rd to 30th of May. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar's 5-day visit to the US has begun to explore the possibilities of joint production of COVID-19 vaccines with American companies. He is likely to meet UNSC Antonio Guterres and will later hold discussions with Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The Asian Boxing Championship to begin today in Dubai. India is assured of 7 medals in the women's section, while it's also adorned with star boxes in the men's section. It will look to improve its previous record. Let's now begin Midday Prime with the big news. Well, like our headline indicated, Union Home Minister Amit Shah held a meeting through video conference link with Chief Ministers of Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal and Lieutenant Governor of Andaman and Nicobar Islands to review preparations in view of Cyclone Yas. Yesterday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a review meeting with state and central agencies to check preparedness ahead of the cyclone's landfall. During the meeting, Prime Minister Modi called for a timely evacuation of those involved in offshore activities and asked officials to work in coordination for rescue and relief work. Prime Minister Modi also stressed on the need to ensure that the time duration of outages of power supply and communication network is minimum and these links are restored swiftly, and as far as the battle against COVID-19 is concerned, that should not suffer at all in the affected areas. Let's set you more on this meeting that is taking place to review the preparedness for Cyclone Yas. My colleague Arun Sharma is with us now. Arun, what can you tell us about what kind of deliberations were there and what sort of instructions or advice was given by the centre to these states and the one union territory that seem to be in the path, along the path of Cyclone Yas as it approaches the shore?
Absolutely. So Gautam, center is 24/7 is monitoring the situation as far as Cyclone Yas is concerned. There is an integrated approach as far as this cyclone is concerned. So both center and states they're having an integrated approach as far as combating this Cyclone Yas. We know this fact that yesterday only Prime Minister Narendra Modi reviewed a high-level meeting, and of course the state chief ministers have also done their internal review as far as the cyclone Yas is concerned. What can be the impact or possible impact of cyclone Yas is concerned? And today, primarily, Home Minister Amit Shah conducted this or chaired this important meeting where the CMs of Odisha, West Bengal, Andhra, and of course the LG of Andaman Nicobar, they all were present in this important meeting. So the idea was as to that, as far as the cyclone Yas is concerned, primarily the state and the central agencies, the rescue agencies, they are constantly on standby. NDRF teams have been deployed, and they are primarily on a standby as far as these coastal areas, the eastern coastal areas are concerned. Second important part, there are certain deliberations that were done by the center. Some of the deliverables are that Home Minister Amit Shah has clearly mentioned this point, that as far as the post-cyclone impact is concerned, that should be ensured that clears out immediately, and that's the reason the Power Ministry, the Oil and Gas Ministry or the Petroleum Ministry, the Telecom Ministry, they are constantly monitoring the situation. The sea vessels that are there in the deep sea, as far as the petroleum or the oil and gas sector is concerned, the Oil and Petroleum Ministry has given orders now to call back the vessels or to the nearby harbors, and of course the oil capacities that should be saved. So that was something told by the Petroleum Ministry, of course, as far as this oil vessels are concerned. Second important part, as far as vaccination is concerned. So Home Minister Amit Shah has clearly instructed this point to all the states, that wherever the vaccination storage points are there, they should be completely saved and ensure that there is safety to all these vaccinations or the vaccines primarily. Third important aspect is that the focus should be on the rescue operations, and of course there should be minimal impact of the cyclone Yas that is concerned. So be it the Power Ministry, they should ensure that if in case there is any kind of power cut, that they should be completely in the front foot as far as restoring the power supplies. Second important aspect is telecom alliance. So the both center and states are coordinating, and telecom ministry is monitoring the situation. And if in case there is a telecom line disruption, that should be ensured that it is restored as soon as possible. So yes, the complete focus of this meeting of Home Minister Amit Shah with the various chief ministers of the states was on the fact that how to minimize the impact of cyclone Yas, and of course what measures will be taken. And we know this fact that constantly Indian Air Force is airlifting the NDRF personnel to these coastal areas. Close to 99 NDRF teams are already on a standby mode, or they are pre-deployed as far as these states are concerned. So in that context, it was a very significant meeting.
Yes, and the chief ministers and the lieutenant governor also must have given their information, all the work that they have done to ensure that at least where lives keeping them secure are concerned, that is the topmost priority.
Absolutely. So we know this fact that this cyclone Yas is going to intensify to severe cyclonic storm on 26th of May. So between 25th and 26th, the focus of the state government is to evacuate the low-lying areas. That's number one. Dissemination of information, that is number two priority of the government, both state government and the central government. So whatever information that is coming in from IMD, that should be disseminated to all the people as far as the cyclone Yas is concerned. Constantly monitoring is being done at the state level and of course at the central level as well as far as cyclone Yas is concerned. Importantly, what state governments have done is that yes, of course, they are focusing upon the fact that low-lying areas can be evacuated. It should be ensured that there should be minimal loss of lives because of cyclone Yas.
Yes.
And as IMD has earlier predicted this point, that this cyclone Yas can be intense in nature, but it won't be as intense as it was like in the case of cyclone Tauktae. So in that case, yes, all the central and the state agencies, the rescue teams are already on standby, be it the Indian Air Force, be it the Indian Navy, or of course, be it the Indian Coast Guard team. Their all vessels are deployed over here. They are on standby as far as the rescue mission is concerned. And that is what, was being apprised by the state governments as well as the center, that what can be the requirement as far as the post-cyclone impact is concerned. So that was clearly apprised to Home Minister Amit Shah as well.
Okay. So it seems that every kind of process and every possibility is being synergized to ensure that the best possible response is mounted to this challenge thrown up by Mother Nature. Let's hope that we keep any sort of loss to the minimum as and when the cyclone arrives. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Arun Sharma. Okay, now the deep depression over East Central Bay of Bengal remained practically stationary during the last 6 hours, intensifying into cyclonic storm Yas this morning itself. It's very likely to move slowly north-northwestwards, intensify further into a severe cyclonic storm during the next 24 hours and into a very severe cyclonic storm during the subsequent 24 hours. It would continue to move north-northwestwards, intensify further and reach northwest Bay of Bengal near North Odisha and West Bengal coasts by the 26th of May in the early morning. And it's very likely to cross North Odisha, West Bengal coasts between Paradip and Sagar Islands around the noon of the 26th of May as a very severe cyclonic storm. So it's being monitored very closely, the progress of this cyclone. Let's find out more about this. Tapas Bhattacharya now joins us for more on this. Tapas, right now this slowness of the progress of the cyclone, the movement, how's that changing how things are being planned as far as, response to its arrival is concerned?
Right, so it is expected that in all likelihood, as of now, that what the IMD is saying that by the noon of 26, the landfall is going to take place. But they may just review it in a few in couple of days time, and maybe by tomorrow afternoon they may review it and come to a different conclusion. It's pretty slow. In fact, in the morning for almost 6 hours it leaves station at one particular time, almost 680 kilometers away from Paradip and Balasore area. So, and we just told just information just to give you from Doordarshan, alert has been right now a warning, a yellow message warning has been issued by the Bhubaneswar IMD, where they have said that the lightning and along with that thunderstorm with a wind speed of almost 30 to 40 can occur near Balasore, Hazrat, Puri, Jagatsinghpur, Kendrapara and some places of Bhubaneswar city, Cuttack city in the next 3 to 4 hours. So that has been sounded by the alert has been sounded by the Bhubaneswar IMD for these particular places, and these are the major places where in the next few days we will experience these places may experience or bear the brunt of the cyclone. In fact, and the IMD, Bhubaneswar IMD also has right now said that the next from tomorrow morning, from 25th morning at around 8 o'clock, orange warning will be issued, and 26th early morning they will be issuing the red warning. So,
okay.
The Bhubaneswar and the Odisha IMD is pretty much keeping a close off route. The IMD Delhi also, the Indian Meteorological Bhavan, the headquarters in Delhi also is keeping a hawk eye on the progress of this. As you mentioned earlier, that the speed of the cyclone has slowed down. In fact, if you take a close look at from yesterday onwards, its speed in the morning it was practically stationed. It's right now moving at around 2 to 6 kilometers per hour. So we want to have to watch exactly what is the situation, and one has to monitor it. And it is quite possible that even the landfall area, as you just mentioned earlier, that it is from Sagar Islands to Balasore and to almost
Paradip.
The whole stretch is there, but it may change, and there may be a slight change in the projection, the trajectory of the cyclone also. Though we have to wait and watch. As of now, IMD is still keeping the same pace, but it might change, or the project of landfall may change in the next few hours.
Okay, okay. So this will have to be closely monitored, and then perhaps a reassessment might be required at some time tomorrow. We'll track it with you as well. Tapas, thanks a lot for joining us for the time being. Okay, now reiterating that the cyclonic storm Yas will make its landfall on the 26th of May, senior scientist of the Indian Met Department in Bhubaneswar, Umashankar Das, has said that the storm will most likely affect the northern regions of Odisha. Das also said that the wind speed will be around 150 to 160 kilometers per hour, gusting up to 180 kilometers per hour in Jagatsinghpur, Kendrapara, Balasore and Bhadrak. during the landfall process.
Operation that is yesterday that is intensified. Now it has been intensified into cyclone storm named Yas, and we are expecting it will be going to be very severe cyclone storm by 25th, and possibly it will going to make cross the coast between Paradip and Sagar Island, and what actually we have upgraded the port warning also, particularly for Paradip and Dhamra.
Now, Odisha Special Relief Commissioner Pradeep K. Jaina has informed that adequate arrangements in terms of evacuation, infrastructure, shelters along with drinking water have been made in view of Cyclone Yas.
The local administration is geared up to effect evacuation in large number. We have deployed so far 22 NDRF, more than 50 ODRAF, and 175 fire service teams and 35 specialized tree cutter teams. We have also requested NDRF to give us additional 30 NDRF units, which are confirmed to us to be arriving in Odisha by today evening, and they will all be deployed.
And as has been mentioned, the NDRF has committed 99 teams across Odisha, West Bengal, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu and Andaman and Nicobar Islands in view of Cyclone Yas. The teams are equipped with boats, tree cutters, telecom equipment and much else. Commandant Eastern 2 Battalion NDRF in West Bengal, Gurminder Singh has said out of 99, 32 teams have been deployed in West Bengal. He also said that the state and central governments are very proactive this time and they are better prepared than Cyclone Amphan. He added that teams have been deployed in large numbers, including State Disaster Response Force as well as Army. He also said that COVID-19 challenges remain the same.
नेशनल डिजास्टर रिस्पांस फोर्स ने ऑलरेडी 35 टीम्स जो है वेस्ट बंगाल में डिप्लॉय कर दी हैं, जिसमें 2 टीम नॉर्थ बंगाल में, बाकी 33 टीम्स साउथ बंगाल में डिप्लॉयड हैं. टीम्स सारी जो है हर तरह की इक्विपमेंट से लैस है. हमारे जितने भी रेस्क्यूअर्स हैं सभी मेडिकल फर्स्ट रिस्पॉन्डर हैं, ट्रेंड हैं. हमारे पास हर तरह के कटिंग इक्विपमेंट्स हैं और पोस्ट डिजास्टर में जो रेस्क्यू और रिलीफ में जिस तरह का भी रोल हमने अदा करना उसके लिए हम बिल्कुल तैयार हैं.
And Indian Coast Guard as well as the Navy have deployed ships and helicopters for relief, search and rescue operations. Air Force and engineered task force units of the Army with boats and rescue equipment are on standby for deployment as well. 7 ships with humanitarian assistance and disaster relief units are on standby along the western coast. Meanwhile, 25 eastern coastal area bound trains will remain cancelled starting today till the 29th of May in view of the cyclone as a precautionary measure. Meanwhile, all government machinery in Paradip are ready to help people when Cyclone Yas makes landfall. Along with COVID-19 guidelines in place, Odisha Disaster Rapid Action Force Unit, firefighting team, police, district administration have all taken major steps to avert any casualties. All fishermen have reached Paradip with their fishing boats. Administration has instructed them to tie up their boats as well. From tomorrow morning, people will be shifted from their thatched homes to cyclone relief centers. Let us now get you our developing story. And the developing story is the COVID-19 situation across the country. Let's first get you the fresh COVID data as issued by the Health Ministry. India has reported 2,22,315 new COVID-19 cases and 4,454 deaths in the past 24 hours. India's daily recoveries continue to outnumber the daily new cases for the 11th successive day today. 3,02,544 recoveries have been registered in the last 24 hours. India's cumulative recoveries have reached 2,37,28,011 today. The national recovery rate has grown further to touch 88.69%. Currently, there are 27,20,716 active cases. This now comprises 10.17% of the country's total positive cases. And according to the Indian Council of Medical Research, 33,536,064 samples have been tested so far for COVID-19. Out of these, 19,28,127 samples were tested yesterday. Union Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan chaired the 27th Group of Ministers meeting on COVID-19 today. He reviewed steps currently being taken for COVID-19 management as well as the overall prevailing situation.
Right now, 16 states in the country, they currently have a very high positivity rate. They are Karnataka, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal, Odisha, Rajasthan, Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Goa, Manipur, Puducherry, Meghalaya, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Sikkim and Lakshadweep. Then just to update you about the vaccination status in the country, till morning today, our latest data informs us that we have already given 19 crore 60 lakh 51,962 doses to our countrymen, and even today we have 1 crore 60 lakh 57,858 doses which are still available with the states to vaccinate people at this point of time. And also in the pipeline, when we say in the pipeline, it means that which are likely to be delivered in the next 2-3 days. We have another 21 lakh 8,160 doses for the states.
And Dr. Harshvardhan also said that so far 98.87 lakh vials of Remdesivir have been allocated across the country as well. And out of this, 22.17 lakh vials of Remdesivir have been allocated to all states and union territories for the period of 23rd to 30th of May.
Update you about the two important things, the Remdesivir injections. Till now, we have already through the central government sent 70.61 lakh Remdesivir vials to the states and have already given 45,735 ventilators to the states.
And speaking about mucormycosis, commonly now being called black fungus, the minister advised people on early detection and management. He added that states have been asked to inform the centre about the numbers so that strategies and drug availability can be planned accordingly.
We know that there has been a recent rise in the number of cases of mucormycosis in many states, and we have taken note of this, and many actions have been taken for advice with the advice of the relevant experts. And we had requested the states to issue notifications to make this disease notifiable so that the central government also knows in detail the extent of the numbers, and so that the strategies could be about drug availability, etc., could be planned accordingly. So by now, 19 states have already issued notifications and made it a notifiable disease under the Epidemics Act.
As part of the nationwide vaccination drive, the centre has been supporting the states and union territories by providing them COVID vaccines free of cost. The central government has so far provided, both through the free of cost category and through direct state procurement category, more than 21.8 crore vaccine doses to states as well as union territories. Of this, the total consumption, calculated based on average up to 23rd of May 2021, including wastage, is around 20 crore. More than 1.8 crore COVID vaccine doses are still available with states and union territories to be administered. Furthermore, more than 48 lakh vaccine doses are in the pipeline and will be received by states and union territories within the next 3 days. Meanwhile, India has crossed a significant landmark in its fight against COVID-19 pandemic today. The country has administered more than 1.06 crore vaccine doses for 18 to 44 age group under phase 3 of the vaccination drive. The cumulative number of COVID-19 vaccine doses administered in the country exceeded 19.6 crores today under phase 3 of the nationwide vaccination drive. 10 states account for 66.3% of the total doses given so far in the country. Implementation of the liberalized and accelerated phase 3 strategy of COVID-19 vaccination started from the 1st of May. Now, the central government has also decided to provide a facility of on-site registration or facilitated cohort registration in addition to online appointment for 18 to 44 years age group on CoWIN. Two important points to be considered for this are, first, in case of sessions exclusively organized with online slots towards the end of the day, some doses may still be left unutilized in case the online appointee beneficiaries do not turn up on the day of vaccination due to some reason. In such cases, on-site registration of a few beneficiaries may be necessary to minimize vaccine wastage. Second, even though CoWIN provides for features such as registration of up to 4 beneficiaries with a mobile number, facilitated registration and appointments through applications such as Arogya Setu and Umang and through the Common Services Center, etc., people requiring facilitated cohorts facility and those without access to internet or smartphones or mobile phones may still have limited access for vaccination. However, this feature is being enabled only for government COVID vaccination centers. At the present moment in time, this feature will be used only upon decision of the respective states and union territory government to do so. Union Health Ministry has further advised that overcrowding at vaccination centers must be avoided at all costs. Furthermore, overcoming all hurdles and finding new solutions, Indian Railways is continuing its journey of bringing relief by delivering liquid medical oxygen to various states across the country. So far, Indian Railways has delivered more than 16,000 metric tons of liquid medical oxygen in 1 month to 14 states across the country. 247 oxygen expresses with 977 tankers have completed their journey so far. Currently, 12 loaded oxygen expresses are running with more than 920 metric tons of LMO in 50 tankers. Highest ever single day load of more than 1142 metric tons of oxygen relief has been delivered by oxygen expresses. Previous best was 1118 metric tons on the 20th of May. Oxygen relief by oxygen expresses has reached out to 14 states, namely Uttarakhand, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, Haryana, Telangana, Punjab, Kerala, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh and Assam. Now, the Board of Control for Cricket in India, that's the BCCI, has announced that it will contribute 10-litre 2,000 oxygen concentrators to boost India's efforts to overcome the COVID-19 pandemic. The nation has been hit by an unprecedented second wave of the coronavirus, with demands for medical equipment and life-saving oxygen witnessing a major spike. Over the next few months, the board will distribute the concentrators across India with the hope that critical medical aid and care will be provided to the needy patients, and this initiative will reduce the havoc unleashed by the pandemic. Bharat Biotech may commence pediatric trials of its COVID-19 vaccine Covaxin starting June. The company announced the decision after receiving permission to carry out trials on children aged between 2 to 18 years. Bharat Biotech's business development and international advocacy head, Rachis Ella, exuded confidence that vaccine for kids may get the license in the third quarter of this year. Holding a virtual conversation with members of FICCI Ladies Organization in Hyderabad on All About Vaccines, he said that the company expected approval from the World Health Organization for Covaxin by the end of third or fourth quarter. Ella also said Bharat Biotech will be ramping up manufacturing capacity of Covaxin to 700 million doses by the end of this year. The Supreme Court has sought response from the centre on a plea seeking compensation of 4 lakh rupees to families of those who have died due to coronavirus. The court also asked the centre to place before it the ICMR guidelines on issuance of death certificates for COVID-19 victims, saying there should be a uniform policy for issuing such documents. The bench posted the matter for the 11th of June and asked the centre to file its reply by then. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath today inspected the arrangements at the COVID Command Hospital in Gonda. He inquired about the ways through which monitoring and regulation of beds, medicine stocks and oxygen is being done. Speaking to media persons about the visit, the Chief Minister said that positivity rate is continuously declining, while recovery rate is witnessing improvement in the state. He added that the government is working on war footing to make all districts of the state self-sufficient in liquid medical oxygen.
उत्तर प्रदेश 3 लाख से अधिक टेस्ट प्रतिदिन कर रहा है और मुझे आप सबको बताते हुए संतोष की अनुभूति हो रही है कि पिछले 24 घंटे के अंदर उत्तर प्रदेश में 3,26,000 से अधिक टेस्ट हुए हैं। प्रदेश के अंदर लगातार पॉजिटिविटी कम हो रही है और रिकवरी बढ़ी है। पॉजिटिविटी की स्थिति है कि प्रदेश के अंदर जो एक बार लगभग 17% तक पहुंच चुका था, आज वह घट करके 2 के आसपास आ चुका है। आने वाले समय में उत्तर प्रदेश का हर जनपद ऑक्सीजन की दृष्टि से आत्मनिर्भर होगा। हर हॉस्पिटल में ऑक्सीजन प्लांट होंगे या ऑक्सीजन कंसंट्रेटर होंगे। ये कार्रवाई युद्ध स्तर पर चल रही है।
Meanwhile, almost a month after peaking at 38,055 cases of COVID-19 per day, the number of fresh cases in the state dipped below 5,000 mark for the first time since mid-April. At least 4,844 fresh cases were registered in the last 24 hours, which was almost 1,200 less than 6,046 cases recorded a day ago. The sharp slide comes amid the UP government's decision to extend the corona curfew by a week. Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan has fiercely attacked Congress leader and former Chief Minister Kamal Nath. Chauhan's attack follows Kamal Nath's accusations that the Madhya Pradesh government is hiding the actual death count. Nath claimed that more deaths have occurred in the state in March and April due to COVID-19 than acknowledged by the Shivraj government. At the same time, the government has refuted his claim and said that Nath is spreading confusion and fear.
तरफ सरकार जनता के सहयोग से संक्रमण को नियंत्रित करने में लगी है, पीड़ित परिवारों की सेवा में लगी है। हम उनके लिए अनेकों योजनाएं बना रहे हैं, हम उनकी तकलीफें कम करना चाहते हैं। वहीं कांग्रेस आग लगाने की तैयारी में लगी है। कमलनाथ जी, जवाब देना पड़ेगा। इस समय जब मिलकर साथ लड़ने का मौका था, आप मौत का उत्सव मना रहे हो, आप काउंटर लगवा रहे हो, आप प्रदेश में अराजकता फैला रहे हो।
In Uttarakhand, COVID-19 curfew has been extended till the 1st of June. Shops selling essential commodities will remain open from 8 in the morning till 11. And on the 28th of May, the public will be free to travel between 8 in the morning and noon for purchase of essential commodities. And considering the benefit of lockdown in curbing the rise in the number of COVID cases, many states have decided to extend the lockdown till the 1st of June. In Bihar, the lockdown has been extended till that date. It was imposed for 3 weeks starting the 5th of May. Chief Minister Nitish Kumar reviewed the situation again today with the associate ministers and officials. He said that everyone felt that the lockdown has a good effect and corona infection is showing decrease. Therefore, it's been decided to continue the lockdown in Bihar for a week beyond the 25th of May. In the south and Tamil Nadu, strict 1 week full lockdown came into effect from today to tackle the ongoing second wave of COVID-19 in the state. Roads were a deserted look across the state as all shops including vegetable and grocery shops were closed. However, essential services like pharmacies, petrol pumps and milk supply among others were allowed to open and operate. Checkposts and barricades were put up on all major roads and all flyovers were shut. Only those with valid e-registration passes for medical care and funerals were allowed to travel. The State Horticulture Department made arrangements for the sale of vegetables and fruits through mobile vehicles in coordination with local bodies. Essential central and state government departments and banks have been allowed to function with limited strength. E-commerce services including food delivery have been allowed to function during certain hours. Media, continuous process industries and units manufacturing essentials and medical equipment have been allowed to operate according to previous lockdown norms. Now, a well-paid nurse, Madhusmita Prushti, quit her job some time back and began to help her husband in cremating COVID-19 infected and unclaimed mortal remains in Bhubaneswar. Madhusmita Prushti says that she was working as a nurse in the pediatric department at Fortis Hospital in Kolkata, but decided to return to Odisha and help her husband as he could not perform cremation work after injuring his leg. Prushti said that she performed last rites of over 300 COVID mortal remains last year at the crematorium and 500 bodies in the last 2.5 years in Bhubaneswar. Being a woman, she was even criticized for cremating bodies, but she continued her work under Pradeep Seva Trust. Prushti says the trust has signed an agreement with Bhubaneswar Municipal Corporation to pick up COVID remains from COVID hospitals and perform last rites. Madhusmita Prushti's husband Pradeep Kumar Prushti has added that both of them also sell vegetables along with doing this work. Now moving on to our National Prime segment as well. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar is in New York on his first visit after India entered the UN Security Council on the 1st of January this year. Jaishankar's 5-day visit will focus on procurement of COVID-19 vaccines from American companies as well as exploring the possibility of their joint production. During the course of his visit, the minister will hold discussions with US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, besides meeting senior officials of the Biden administration. In New York, Dr. Jaishankar is expected to meet UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. The minister will also have 2 interactions with business forums on economic and COVID-19 related cooperation between the 2 countries. Let's find out a little bit more about the kind of engagements that the External Affairs Minister will be having in New York and Washington DC. First, Abhishek, of course, it's New York, then Wednesday is when he reaches Washington DC, and that's when perhaps he'll meet Secretary Blinken. But just tell us about the New York leg first.
Okay, so in New York, Gautam, he's expected to meet UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, where India, we know that in the beginning of this year, India has become a member of, non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, and this is first visit of External Affairs Minister Jaishankar ever since India has got that coveted seat. So of course, during this his meeting with the Secretary General, he will be discussing India's perspective towards major global issues right now, from humanitarian issues, from social equality, gender empowerment, to conflict issues and regional peace in various regions of the world. Especially, we know that in India's neighborhood also there are like at least 2 big problem or conflict situation. One is in Myanmar and one is in Afghanistan.
Yes.
And India has a very key stake in both the issues. And since United Nations has been continuously urging all the stakeholders in these 2 conflict regions to come to a peaceful resolution of the situation. So India's point of view is something that Secretary General would be keen in knowing and coming from the highest authority, probably from the External Affairs Minister. It is expected to be kind of engaging conversation between both the sides to understand each other's point of view.
And then in Washington DC, of course, a lot of focus will be there when he meets Secretary Blinken and perhaps other members of the administration as well, the Biden administration, and then even the business meetings, the 2 meetings that he'll be having, quite crucial as far as not just the bilateral relationship is concerned, but taking the cooperation on the COVID-19 war front forward as well, especially vaccines.
Of course, Gautam, and with his U.S. counterpart, Secretary Blinken, it will be second meeting of external affairs within a month's time, because earlier in G20 meeting they also had a conversation and a bilateral sort of meeting. But this time around, we have seen how the situation has turned around. India has been ravaged by this growing pandemic, and we had to sought help from global peers, and US was one of the leading country in terms of assisting and aiding India's rising cases and helping curb them down. And almost $500 million worth of US aid has also landed in India, and US has also assured more cooperation and collaboration in future fight against COVID pandemic also. So what that future fight against COVID pandemic holds. India needs now, with this kind of decline we are seeing in the COVID cases in the recent days, now a long-term strategy is something that India is trying to work around, and that needs to have more therapeutic assistance and assistance in terms of more number of vaccine production. We have seen how two manufacturers of India in terms of vaccine have been able to not entirely cater to the mass, the number of people we have. So we need to have more options of vaccine, at the same time more number of facilities. So how can this be collaborated and cooperated? So this is one of the key major agenda of the both foreign ministers that is expected.
Well, certainly I'm sure there are others as well, but we're a little short on time. But we'll create an opportunity later, perhaps in the day, to discuss more about it. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Abhishek Jha. Okay, now moving on to what's happening in the business and economy world. And for all the business and economy updates, let's go across to Tanvi.
Stock markets have mostly stayed in the green on Monday. So after a positive opening, the Sensex at the Bombay Stock Exchange had gained 118 points, so 0.2% to 50,659 a short while ago. The Nifty at the National Stock Exchange had added 26 points or 0.2% to 15,202. In the broader market, the BSE Mid-Cap Index had climbed 1% and the Small Cap Index added 0.8%. The top index gainers today so far are Indian Oil Corporation, SBI, Hero MotoCorp and Larsen & Toubro, with gains of between 2% and 3.5%. In fact, strong buying has been seen in financial stocks, mainly PSU bank stocks. So, and talking about the top index losers, they are Shree Cements, JSW Steel, Britannia and IndusInd Bank, with losses of between 1.4 and 2.7%. Shifting our attention to Asian markets now. Key Asian markets were mixed on Monday as investors awaited key US inflation readings for guidance on monetary policy. So MSCI's broadest index of Asia Pacific shares outside Japan dipped 0.1%, but Japan's Nikkei added 0.2% and the Chinese blue chips rose 0.2% as well. Back home at the interbank foreign exchange market, the rupee depreciated slightly against the dollar in early trade amid a strong American currency. Later, the rupee had weakened 4 paise to 72 rupees 87 paise against the dollar a short while ago. At the multi-commodity exchange, gold had gained 111 rupees to 48,515 rupees per 10 grams. Silver had climbed 572 rupees to 71,621 rupees per kilo. And lastly, shifting our attention to the global energy market. Global crude oil prices rose on Monday as a potential snag emerged in reviving the 2015 Iran nuclear deal that could add more oil supply. So Brent crude oil futures rose 72 cents or 1.1% to $67.16 a barrel. US crude gained 67 cents or 1.1% to $64.25 a barrel. So that's it in our Business Prime segment for now. Back to you, Gautam.
Thank you, Tanvi. Okay, moving on to getting you what else is happening across the world as well. Okay, let's first take a look at all the updates that are coming on in the COVID-19 situation from across the globe. The virus has infected more than 16 crore 75 lakh people, while the number of recoveries stand above 14 crore 85 lakh globally. Over 34 lakh 78,000 fatalities due to COVID-19 have also been reported worldwide. The United States continues to remain the worst affected country with over 3 crore 38 lakh 96,000 cases of COVID-19 with more than 6 lakh deaths. Now, let's get you what is happening in Japan, where Olympics are supposed to be starting a couple of months down the line. Hospitals in Japan's second largest city of Osaka are buckling under a huge wave of new coronavirus infections, running out of beds and ventilators as exhausted doctors warn of a system collapse and advise against holding of the Olympics this summer. Japan's western region, home to 9 million people, is suffering the brunt of the fourth wave of the pandemic, although it constitutes just 7% of its population. The speed at which Osaka's healthcare system was overwhelmed underscores the challenges of hosting a major global sporting event in 2 months' time, particularly as only about half of Japan's medical staff have complete inoculations. Japan has avoided the large infections suffered by other nations so far, but the fourth pandemic wave has taken Osaka Prefecture by storm. Over in Europe, Parisians enjoyed dining outside during France's first weekend on Sunday since the reopening of restaurant terraces on the 19th of May. France's 7-day moving average for new COVID-19 cases held below the 14,000 mark for a fourth day running on Saturday, down from a peak of more than 42,000 in mid-April when the country was in the midst of its third lockdown. France has been gradually loosening its lockdown since the start of May and hopes to lift all major restrictions by the end of June. Since the 19th of May, cafes and restaurants have been able to serve customers in outside areas, and the nightly curfew has been pushed back by 2 hours. And it's time now to get you all the updates from different sporting arenas. Well, India is assured of 7 medals at Asian Boxing Championships as 7 women enter the semi-finals at the Asian Championships in Dubai. 6-time world champion MC Maricom seated top in her category. Defending champion Pooja Rani, Anupama Saviti, Lavlina Borgohain, Lal Butsaini and Monica made the last 4 stage. A total of 6 Indian male boxers, including defending champion Amit Pangal, Varinder Singh, Vikas Krishan, Ashish Kumar, Sanjeet and Narendra got first round byes into the quarterfinals. In all, 19 Indian boxers, 9 men and 10 women will stake their claim for top honours. A total of 27 countries were expected to participate, but that shrunk to 17 on Sunday due to COVID-forced travel restrictions. The tournament was initially scheduled in New Delhi, but was shifted to Dubai due to travel restrictions. The event is jointly being hosted by Boxing Federation of India and UAE Boxing Federation. Football now, and finishing third in the English Premier League, Liverpool secured the Champions League qualification spot on a thrilling last day of the Premier League season, managed to defeat Crystal Palace 2-0. Sadio Mane scored both goals for Liverpool as he scored the first goal in the 36th minute on a pass from Firmino. In the 74th minute of the match, Mane again managed to score his second goal on the pass from Salah. Liverpool, who were once out of the top 4, managed to win the league in the final 4, winning 5 consecutive matches. Nearly 10,000 supporters from Liverpool were present on the field to watch the match. And Manchester United defeated Wolverhampton 2-1 in their final match of the Premier League season. For Man U, 19-year-old Anthony Elanga scored the first goal in the 13th minute. This was Elanga's first goal in the Premier League. However, Wolverhampton's Nelson scored the goal in the 39th minute to make it 1-1. But just before the end of the first half of the game, Juan Mata scored a goal to give Man U the edge once again with a 2-1 lead. No team was able to score goals in the second half. Now, with this victory, Man U have finished the season in second place in the league. And Sergio Aguero signed off for Manchester City in style as he scored twice in a 5-0 romp for the Premier League champions against Everton and lifting the trophy for the 5th time in his Etihad career. City's record goal scorer hit a quick-fire double after coming off the bench with 25 minutes remaining. His efforts added to earlier strikes from Kevin De Bruyne, Gabriel Jesus and Phil Foden as City showed no sign of letting up ahead of the showpiece clash against Chelsea in Porto. The winner trophy was awarded to Man City in the presence of spectators at the stadium to watch City for the first time this season. Let's talk about F1 now, and Red Bull's Max Verstappen won Formula One's Showcase Monaco Grand Prix to lead the World Championship for the first time in his career. The 23-year-old Dutch driver started the day 14 points behind Mercedes' 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton and ended it 4 clear. Hamilton finished 7th with an extra point for the fastest lap. Ferrari's Carlos Sainz finished 2nd after teammate Charles Leclerc, who had secured pole position after crashing in qualifying, was ruled out before the start with a drive shaft problem. The podium was the Spaniard's first since he joined Ferrari this year. The victory was Verstappen's 2nd of the season and also the first time he had stood at the podium in the sport's most glamorous race. He now has 105 points to Hamilton's 101, with Norris moving up to 3rd on 56, that's way behind. As Red Bull celebrated a breakthrough weekend, going top of the constructors' standings by a single point, champions Mercedes dropped the ball. Now, the World Boxing Organization has ordered Anthony Joshua to defend his heavyweight title against mandatory challenger Alexander Usyk after the Britain's bout with domestic rival Tyson Fury was thrown into doubt. Joshua was set to face Fury on the 14th of August in Saudi Arabia, but Fury was ordered by an American arbitrator to fight Deontay Wilder for a 3rd time before the 15th of September. Joshua and Ukrainian Usyk have until the 31st of May to reach an agreement for the fight, the World Boxing Organization said, or purse bids will be called, opening the process to any promoter who wants to bid for the bout. If the fight goes to a purse bid, Joshua would receive 80% of the bid, while former undisputed world cruiserweight champion Usyk would get 20%. The World Boxing Organization said that such calculation is based upon the average purse of each fighter's last 3 bouts, adding that the minimum bid would be $1 million. And with that, it's a wrap for the moment in this edition of Midday Prime. But in just a bit, do join us again with Dr. Speak, where we take all your queries and put them up to experts, whatever is health related, whether it's COVID-19 related or not. Stay with us.